Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Asheville. I'm Adam Griffith, board member and parent of children in religious exploration. Hello, kids, if you're watching me at home. We want you to know that whoever you are, wherever you come from, whoever you love, wherever you are on your journey of exploring who you are valuable and worthy of love. You are welcome here. On a personal note, I want to quickly reflect on how wonderful it is to be here in the sanctuary again. I was last in this room about 2 years ago, and am currently representing my role as a board member up here to welcome you. I also became a worship associate during the pandemic and have never participated in an in-person service as a worship associate. So this is wonderful. That is my brief reflection. For those of you at home who have been unable to attend and are still viewing from home, I have brought something which will help you reflect on this particular topic. Thank you. Our worship team today is Minister of Faith Development, Reverend Claudia Jimenez, and Music Director Les Downs, who, together with Worship Associate Charlie Marks, welcome you to today's service as we explore the promise of Unitarian Universalism. We are glad you are here, congregant or visitor, online or in person. If you are visiting online and want to learn more, click on the link in the chat box. While you're in the chat, we invite you to introduce yourself and tell us where you're watching from. We're glad you're here. Now let us prepare for worship with today's centering music.
This morning when I looked at the calendar, I was reminded that on February 20th last year I saw my first daffodil. As I was driving in today, I didn't see a one, but maybe next week. Our chalice reminds us of our past and reminds us of what we can expect in the future. For those of you watching at home, please join us by lighting your own chalice. Adapted from the words of Reverend Dr. Natalie Maxwell Fenimore, We seek to make a welcome for all those in search of our good news. Come, come, little children, teens, young adults, adults and elders. Come, families in great diversity. Come to this loving home and safe harbor, but not to find a place to escape the world. This is a community of engagement and of creativity. We come together to create boldly, even dangerously. We are called to create the beloved community with an awareness of how difficult it is, because it is a deep ministry. It is a ministry that challenges us to bring our whole selves and engage deeply for the long haul. Our faith, our tradition, calls us into community. Our task is to create spaces where we might know and value each other. We light this chalice for the possibilities before us.
Good morning. Buenos dias. Like Adam, I also echo the joy in being together, in seeing all your faces in this space, and in seeing our children and our families here. Our call to worship is adapted from the words of Jules Jaramillo. This morning, we gather to worship as a community of all ages, virtual and in person. Let us take a moment to look around. Look around at those sharing this sacred space in this sanctuary or at home. Even if you are home on your own, your presence is sacred, and this community holds you in love and care. Let us recognize the hearts of our whole community, toda la comunidad, from our eldest, from our elders to our youngest, and all ages in between. Let us embody the beauty, la belleza of the whole church community, even when there are a few more wiggles and giggles and chatter. Let us remind ourselves to escuchar, to listen carefully, calming our bodies and our minds, nuestros cuerpos y nuestras mentes. Let's take a moment and do this by breathing. Begin by breathing peace and joy into this sacred space here, into your sacred space at home. Let us share 3 deep breaths together. Know that you are surrounded by the love of this community, where all are welcome. Let us lift our voices in song, and I invite you to move if the Spirit asks you to.
Jesus spoke, entreating them to live together in a great circle of love. When his followers asked him then, a class or creed. Sometimes a circle is made of only men. Until Susan B. Anthony says, what about me? Let me in. Let everybody, everybody, everybody to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody to the circle, circle. Sometimes a circle is a privileged thing, excluding people for the color of their skin. Till the voice of Martin Luther King says, let freedom ring, let down, let everybody, everybody, to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 to the circle, circle. Gay and straight, rich and poor, old and broken, open up that door. The more we are, the greater we become. After all, we all are one. Bringing the people, but don't stop there. Bringing the fish in the sea, birds in the air. Bringing the rivers wide, mountains tall. We go together, or not at all. Let everybody in, everybody in, everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, everybody, everybody to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody to the circle, circle.
But we did it! Yay us! Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in to that circle, circle. And this month, what's the theme for this month? Who knows? Widening the circle. And I'm not talking about with a protractor. What does this phrase mean to you? Abran el círculo. Widen the circle. One way to widen the circle is to increase the radius. Imagine that. UUism radiating into the world. Another way of widening the circle is to invite in different voices, diferentes voces, and different perspectives, diferentes perspectivas. So as I was thinking about this service, I thought, what would it be like to write a sermon where I have input from the congregation? I wanted to hear from you. And so I was talking to my partner, Steve, and he said, well, how about haikus? They're short. Nobody can go on and on and on. I'm like, ooh, maybe that's the way my sermons should be. But anyway, so I said, okay, let's do the haikus. And then I thought, there's someone in our congregation, Joyce Hooley, who has written a book of haikus. So I saw Joyce, and I said to her, Joyce, do you want to do a video with me? And we can invite the congregation to send in haikus. And so that's what we did. And some of you may have seen the video, because we put it on Facebook, and we put it in the e-news. And after this happened, I got this haiku. Video link fails. My heart aches for clarity. Let me try again. That was from Mariam. So as you all know, technology is great when it works, but when the minister doesn't know how to use Google Docs and share files and stuff, not so good. So I tried again, and then I got another haiku saying, smiling and laughing, watching haiku video. Yes, this link works. From Marianne Newman. So it seems like, many other people had that problem. So those were some of the fun haikus I got. And now I want to share with you some of the haikus about Unitarian Universalism and its promise. however you define the word promise, and there will be more on that later. So here are some of them. Know and not answer questions. To change things, first change your mind. But question answers. Charles Forrest. Multicultural and multi-faith. One doesn't know it all. Teresa Sandoval. This one has a title, True Story. The promise of brunch tricked me. Besides eggs, my friend served a lifelong faith. Mary Om. Title, Inner Wisdom. Finding my own way, honoring inner wisdom, knowing I'm okay. Deborah Freeman. In community, shared values, different paths, and show some love, kids. Laurel Stolte. No need to explain, no God limiting the search, open to everything. Bob Wilson. These are some of the haikus shared. During the sermon, I will intersperse a few more. And this last one, I wrote for our children to celebrate this wonderful permanent space created by our religious educators, Jen Johnson and Kim Collins. So here's my haiku for the kids. Bright, colorful space joyfully sends the message. Welcome, you are loved. So those are our haikus this morning. I wonder which ones spoke to you, and I wonder how our children are enjoying their new space. So much to wonder, a wonderful space. The future arrives as we find our place. That is our wisdom story this morning. Charlie.
The promise of Unitarian Universalism, what it is and what it isn't to me. What does this promise mean to me? From our gray hymnal, number 188, the Rumi verse, "Come, come, whoever you are, and ours is no caravan of despair," just about sums it up for me. A safe community wrapped in reason and science. There's an old saying in journalism that their role is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. It seems to me that that notion describes the modern UU movement also. Bring it on. I look forward to being challenged about my view of the world. I often walk out the front door after church on Sunday morning, clutching the order of service, on which, using the little golf pencil in the back of the pew, I've taken notes. Notes on things I must explore further. The UU notion of building one's own theology is a necessary but very difficult task. However, go down the street that way or that way or that way, and try that in some of the other Sunday morning hot spots, and we'd get a pretty chilly reception, I think. On the other hand, what UU isn't for me? Our ministers never make promises to us for which they can't be held accountable. They don't threaten us with imaginary fears. They don't guilt trip us. Well, not really. sometimes when sitting around the collection plate, and that one usually falls on the shoulders of the worship associate anyway. So I see the promise is that we will always be free to seek truth and meaning.
Thank you, Charlie. That search for truth and meaning with accountability is definitely one of the promises of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. And now, in this time, in the center of our service and in the center of our lives, let us pause to honor the silences of the world and open our hearts to a time of prayer and reflection. And this morning, our reflection is going to be musical. The song will be Oxygen by Reverend Luella Perkins, accompanied by Leah Morris.
What do I choose to give oxygen to today? What wolves will I feed and which will I keep at bay? When the world overwhelms me, in the quiet of my heart I say, what do I choose to give oxygen to today? What do I choose to give oxygen to today? What wolves will I feed and which will I keep at bay? When the world overwhelms me, in the quiet of my heart I say, what do I choose to give oxygen to today? What do I choose to give oxygen to today? What wolves will I feed and which will I keep at bay? When the world overwhelms me, in the quiet of my heart I say, what do I choose to give oxygen to today? When the world overwhelms me, in the quiet of my heart I say, what do I choose to give oxygen to today?
I invite you into a moment of silence as you reflect on what are those things that you choose to give oxygen to each day. Now is the time in our service when again we have the opportunity to engage in our ritual of candle lighting for the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us today. And if you are home, we invite you to share those joys and sorrows in the chat. So please come forward and light a candle for a joy, for a sorrow that accompanies you this morning. If you have shared a joy, know that we rejoice with you. If you have shared a sorrow, know you are held in love. And we are super excited this morning. We have Maria Bonilla with us. It's nice to see Maria and Esteban and their cousin Jose with us this morning. So as you may have guessed, this is going to be a slightly different sermon. I took my inspiration from the haikus that I got from you, and I interspersed them throughout. So let's see how that goes. So a few weeks ago, I was here on campus, and it was a Saturday, and in Sandberg Hall, we had a whole bunch of youth and adults, mentors, and facilitators in a coming-of-age retreat. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Coming of Age is a program that supports our youth as they transition into young adulthood. And they are invited to explore their ethical and religious identity through ritual, discussion, group building activities, and community outreach. And as I was talking to the facilitators, they were sharing how much they were enjoying the deep connection and conversation that was happening in Sandberg Hall in that retreat between our youth and the adults that were there with them. And as I observed the dispersed group, I thought, this is a moment of beloved intergenerational community. And I really appreciated, I don't know, but is that like a North Carolina thing? Because I say appreciate all the time now. But I really appreciated the investment of presence, of time, of talent, and resources in working with our youth across ages, across gender identity, and across theological perspectives. And as Charlie alluded to, theological perspectives that in our youth are still emerging, not fully formed, and sincerely encouraged. This commitment by mentors and the earnest participation of our youth embodies the generational promise of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And even today, launching this welcoming space for our children and welcoming their energy and their giggles and their movement embodies the promise of our faith that invites us to a welcome that allows us to engage in new practices and new ways of being that we may not be used to. Because building community isn't always going to be about what I want in a space or in a situation, but what we need so that we can be together. So this promise of what we offer our children and our families so that they can go forth in the world and live into those values is powerful. And so I share a haiku. The future is held in the hands of our children. They show such promise. By Bernice Lynch. Now, one definition of promise is to give ground for expectation. And one of the expectations we hear often in Unitarian Universalist circles is that we can contribute to create the beloved community. And sometimes we say, but what do we mean by beloved community? And so we continually bring it up in sermon, in groups, and we talk about the beloved community happening when across identities and backgrounds, we come together in love, in mutual respect and care, so that everybody can thrive. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving, so that everybody can thrive. And that expectation is rooted in our Unitarian Universalist heritage that champions religious freedom and social justice. That is a history that we carry with us. And as we carry that history with us, we recognize that even those ancestors were swimming in the water of white supremacy, that today we can finally name and strive to overcome. But it does not deny that the principles and aspirations of our faith provide fertile ground for theological inquiry and growth. Friends, we are in a perpetual process of becoming, growing into that which we aspire to be. You know, I think about it, and sometimes it's like our country aspires to be that democracy that is inclusive, and that aspiration continues to elude us. But through a faith that teaches us to welcome and go beyond ourselves and create space for others, maybe we can contribute to being part of that beloved community that expands into a nation where everybody, like everybody in the circle, like everybody can thrive, everybody can survive. So we still have work to do, don't we? Another haiku. Unitarian? Yes. Universalist? Yes. So grateful? Yes. By E.J. Hack. And there is gratitude in this legacy. Nothing is perfect. And there's a lot of beauty in our faith. So we're going to just briefly explore the legacy of these two Christian theological movements that are actually the foundation of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. And how we embody them holds promise for co-creating beloved community. So let's begin with our Universalist ancestors. They were the ones who spoke up heretically against this idea that God only saves a few. And they rejected the concept of hell. Now, that was then, in the 1800s, when Unitarians and Universalists did have a Christian creed. And over time, that has evolved to a more open theology. But then, that was such a radical departure, and in many ways, the seed toward the compassionate, inclusive faith that we strive to be today. And today, that universalism translates into our aspiration of radical welcome and revolutionary love for all without any test or any creedal test for belonging. So here's another haiku. Walking here alone, finding love along the way. Connection makes life. By Diana Forrest. And that is that promise of our faith, this ability to be open to love. When I think about what my theology is, and when I talk about God, and when I talk about the sacred, for me, God is love. So when people talk about God, I can translate that. I don't have to shut it down and say, no, I don't believe in that. I'm like, yeah. How do you define love? I define love as God, as community, as connection. And I think that that is part of the way we interpret the sacred in our faith. This expansive love is part of our promise. And we're working on it, right? We're working on it because we miss the mark, because we're human, we're fallible. And so we strive to welcome all identities and to partner with people beyond these doors. It's not just whoever's in here that we love, right? It's how do we find commonality, shared values, shared commitments, regardless of particular theological rascalities. Now, that is a word that I learned this weekend in the New York Review of Books. It's such a great word. John Quincy Adams, one of the founders of the Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C., disapproved of Ralph Waldo Emerson's transcendentalism. And if you remember the transcendentalists, they stated that the divine is in the soul of the individual, where goodness resides. And in that time, it was the Calvinist dogma that prevailed. Oh no, it's original sin and eternal damnation. So when Emerson spoke at the Harvard Divinity School to their seminarians when they graduated, and he talked about transcendentalism and divinity residing inside us, oh my God, John Quincy Adams said, that guy's crazy, crazy. And so he said that Emerson had become involved in fads and rascalities. Don't we want to be involved in those kinds of rascalities? Emerson rather liked the attribution. And I think that he would have been a great fan of John Lewis, who tells us to get into good trouble and push back against the status quo. So keep in mind that these words, we can take them back. We can take back the word God. It doesn't have to be the God that triggers stuff in us because of the way that we learned about God. We can take back that word rascal. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. So now back to this expansive love that our Universalist ancestors kind of keyed us onto. And this thinking of love and what it means took me to the work of the late Bell Hooks, who defined love as the will to turn one's own and another's spiritual growth, the will to nurture one's own and another's spiritual growth through acts of love, care, and knowing, and responsibility. So beyond the filial love, the romantic love, the easy love of people that think like me, she is inviting us to practice love in the larger community. She sees love as a primary way to end domination and oppression, to disrupt the status quo through beneficent rascalities, through a love that is radical and that asks of me to make sacrifice. Because when we share, when we love, when we give, sometimes there's discomfort. Sometimes I have to sacrifice. Sometimes it's not just about me. And that is one of our challenges with our individualism, not only in our nation, but in our faith. So I think our congregations can be catalysts to awaken each person's call to contribute to co-creating beloved community through an expansive love. We can be the rascals we want to see in the world, making the change that we want to do. And we can express love in different ways. So I think it's time for another haiku. Can you guess what this haiku is about? Friends on icy streets, people, bins, emails, and care, popped tops and hot hands, by Marianne Newman. Maintaining the beloved pantry is one small way of putting love into action. And yes, there is a much larger structural problem that needs to be addressed. And alongside that, there are little acts of love that we can do that can affect the people around us. Because this big structural change takes time. That's why we're doing you the vote. That's why we get out the vote. That's why we do that kind of stuff. But it's all, it's all yes and. We do the big stuff, we do the little stuff, because that's what it takes. it takes. So promoting an ethic of universal love is part of the promise of our faith. Another promise lies in the questioning, curious stance of our Unitarian ancestors who wondered about the nature of divinity and the dogma of the Trinity. So you know Emerson was a Unitarian. They argued for the indivisible nature of the divinity. They didn't believe in the concept of original sin. They didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. They believed that Jesus was an awesome teacher who lived his life according to the things he preached. Like Peter Mayer sang, the Jesus that sent everybody in. Because who did he hang out with? He didn't hang out with the people out here. He hung out with the people that were not being led in to the circles. And that's the Jesus we talk about. That's the Jesus our children learn about in religious education, a teacher that walked the talk and spread love. So our Unitarian Universalist heritage continues to embrace reason, critical thinking, and curiosity, and we are invited all to create our own theology with accountability, bounded by our 7 principles, because it's not a free-for-all. We can't just believe everything we want. However, I do believe that our doors are open to everyone. And when they come in, they may come in maybe not respecting everybody's worth and dignity, right? But they can come in and they can either be transformed because of the love and the practice in this space, or they can walk out and say, this isn't the faith for me. And that's real too. But the bottom line is that that circle has to be open. That welcome has to be there. So when we talk about Unitarian Universalism being a pluralistic faith that welcomes different paths to truth, we're also talking about a religion that is striving to be pluralistic in its community, that is moving from a monoculture that is rooted in dominant culture to a more expansive, open, welcoming space where it's not always about me and what I am used to, where we can dance and we can clap and we can move sometimes. And it's okay, because if it's not your thing, you can choose to just be present, because being a witness is also important in our faith. And so let's think about that radical welcome and moving from a mindset of come and be like me, come and be like us, to a mindset that, in the words of Episcopal priest Stephanie Spellers, embraces and is changed by the gifts, presence, voices, and power of the other. Her words speak to the transformation that can occur when we are in authentic relationship with those outside of our usual circles. And maybe in all this work that we're doing towards liberation, maybe it is that in this congregation, we learn to welcome the diversity that we already have, because it's not just skin color, right? And so what if we can practice here to welcome each other authentically and deeply, then maybe we are prepared to go out in the world and be those rascals that are demanding change, right? Because sometimes we think, oh, we just have to go out there, we just have to go. But what's happening in here, right? We love each other, and sometimes we don't, because we're human, right? So I really like that, because sometimes I think, you know, as a Latina minister here, you know, sometimes I hear, oh, we just need to get more people like you here. We just need to get some black people here. And it's like, why do they want to come and be with us? Why don't we want to go and be with them? Because we can, you know, it doesn't have to be we've arrived when we brown the pews, because it's more than that. People will come if our message if our message and our actions say, I want some of that. Not, oh, come, just come, because, no, that's not what we're about. So, so there's a lot of promise. Don't you think there's promise? There's love. Yes. There's building our own theology with accountability, right? There's learning to stay in covenant with each other. Because it is that engagement, and I'll just share one final story because I've lost track of time. But, I've been helping out with the pantry. And a couple of weeks ago, I drove up to the pantry, and there was a young man that was taking food out of the pantry. And I parked my car, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, maybe he wants privacy to take stuff out of the pantry, but I have all this stuff in my car. Maybe he wants some of what I have, but what am I going to say? Like, what if I say something wrong? Because I felt really uncomfortable, right? And so I kind of got over myself. I got over my fear. I got out of my car, and I said hello, and and we had a conversation. Bottom line, I had a conversation with him. He had a conversation with me. He has his challenges. I have my challenges. He is no less worth of love and compassion, right? And I just thought, like, that changed me. I mean, I can read about homelessness. I can write letters to the city council. But that moment of seeing his eyes, and, I don't know his story, right? And one of the things that broke my heart was he shared, because one of the things that was in our haiku, right, were the hot hands. And he shared with me how on these cold days, when he sleeps under the bridge, he puts hot hands all over his body, because that's how he can keep warm, And that really, like, what do we do? Like, what do we do? What is our responsibility to each other? I mean, I don't have the solutions, but I think that when we begin to engage like that, our hearts are changed. We can't come back and be in our heads. So I think there's promise there. I am so excited to see our congregation engaging more and getting outside of these four walls and getting outside of our heads sometimes. That excites me. It excites me for this time of transition, because this congregation can be part of making this community a better place. Even our families that are working with the Afghan refugees and have one family, they are working with other congregations, other theologies unlike ours, and who cares? Because our values, our common commitments are taking us to this work. And they are being changed as they hear the reality of the lives of these people. It's not that they grace us with their presence. It's not that our kids grace us with their presence or that we grace them with ours. It's that we grace each other with our being, with our love, and with our presence. So there I go again. Let's close. So in closing, I invite you to consider another understanding of promise that comes from the Latin root promittere, meaning to send forth. What are each of us being sent forth to do as a result of our engagement with Unitarian Universalism and this congregation? Because if we're not being transformed, if we're not being moved to go out there and be rascals, then I'm not doing my job and you're not doing my job, because my job isn't to do this alone. My job is to make sure we do this together. So may fear not hold you or us back. May you go forth in love and curiosity and be the good rascals you want to see in the world. You can do it. And now, let us lift our voices in song.
Let our hearts not be hardened to those who live margins. There is a room at the table for everyone. This is where it all begins. This is how we gather in. There is room at the table for everyone. Too long we have wandered, burdened and undone, but there is room at the table for everyone. Let us sing the new world in. This is how it all begins. There is a room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, there is a room at the table for everyone. Here and now we can be the beloved community. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. Let our hearts not be hardened to the living on the margins. There is a room at the table for everyone. This is how we gather in. For everyone. Everyone.
Wow. Of course, our announcements run as slides at the beginning of the program. If you missed it or you need some details or some information, I refer to this Thursday's weekly e-news as everything is in there. Our Community Plate recipient this month is the Mel Hetland Scholarship, and as you know, it is entirely funded by us, by UU Asheville. You may contribute by check or on our website or by text. For the gifts of your time, talent, presence, and financial support, we are grateful. Thank you. This morning's offering will now be received. If you are watching us online, following the postlude, you're invited to linger and join us for conversation and virtual connection using the Zoom link in this morning's email. We welcome visitors and friends alike. Our focus there will turn to listening to your feedback for the Racial Justice Advisory Council report. There will also be listening circles this week, February 22nd, 24th, and 28th. Contact Reverend Claudia for details. And I welcome Adam back to the pulpit.
Thank you, Charlie. We now have special recognition for Reverend Claudia in honor of her dedication to the congregation. Becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister is an incredibly arduous process, and it takes years to achieve. I had no idea about how arduous this process was until Reverend Kathy informed me about it, and I'd like to share some of that with you. After completing 3 years of seminary education, an internship, and earning a Master's of Divinity degree, there are additional requirements. Demonstrating 17 competencies. I'm sure Claudia just demonstrated all 17 in her message. Completing an extensive reading list, and finally being reviewed by the UUA Ministerial Fellowship Committee. After they earn their preliminary fellowship, the minister is required to have 3 approved renewals to earn full fellowship in the UUA. The minister must have a mentor for the 3 years and a yearly evaluation during those 3 years to be completed by the church's Board of Trustees. The Committee on Ministry and a self-evaluation, they're all reviewed and approved by their mentor. Finally, and only then, are you granted full fellowship. Whew. I'm proud to announce that Reverend Claudia earned her full fellowship last fall. Congratulations. Will you please stand up? Be on the screen somewhere. There you go. Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay, perfect. In appreciation of your outstanding ministerial presence and dedication to the members of this community, we would like you to have this special gift in just a moment. On a personal note, I have learned so much from you, while also knowing that I can't fully appreciate what I don't fully understand, which is you. What I do know is that you're full of infectious energy. And did you all see, at home, viewers, she just got Unitarians clapping. Together. Full of intellect and passion. And it is absolutely apparent in what you do. If you don't want some of what she's got, I don't know what to tell you. So thank you for being you and choosing to share your gifts with us. We love you, you little rascal. And congratulations. So
Thank you.
yes, please.
Can I open it?
Yes, please do. Please do.
I love gifts. All right, let's do this. Oh, but first,
Well, yeah, you're very sweet too.
chocolate. All right, that's the priority, the chocolate. Oh, look at that. Because I don't like color, right? Oh, thank you, thank you. Just gonna keep it on. Thank you so much. It is an honor to serve this congregation. And these 3 years, I have learned a lot from you because it's a mutual thing, right? It's not just me, it's us. And I can't do this without us being in it. So, Charlie, back to you.
What an exciting day for 1,000 reasons, but well, please rise as you are able as we sing our closing song, and join me in lifting our hands in gratitude for all that we love and appreciate. And all love surround you. May the pure light within you guide your way home. May the long-time sun shine upon you. And all love surround you. May the pure light within you guide your way home.
Extinguimos esta llama, we extinguish the flame, pero no la luz de la verdad, but not the light of truth. El calor de comunidad, the warmth of community, el fuego de nuestro compromiso, the fire of commitment, estos los llevaremos en el corazón, these we carry in our hearts, hasta que estemos juntos otra vez, until we are together again. I am grateful for our work together. Go forth in love, curiosity, and let's be rascals together.